All right. Welcome in, everyone. Happy Wednesday up in here. My name is Janet Parks. I'm excited to be hanging out with y'all today. We've got a little bit of a different live because John had a little bit of an emergency, so he won't be joining us, but that's okay. He's okay, but he had to go handle some things. So I'm excited to be hanging out with you guys and giving you some value today, giving you some awesome tips on how you can start generating multiple streams of income simultaneously with the thing that you're already doing. So, I'm going to be doing this by sharing really my experience. And hopefully, with my tips and strategies I'm going to share with you, you'll have kind of a better idea of how you can go into creating your personal brand alongside that thing that you're already doing. So, if you are watching live, hashtag live in the comment section for me. I think I can see comments on my end. Okay, perfect. So I have access to that. So comment below, hashtag live if you end up catching this live, or if you end up catching this on the replay, hashtag replay in the comment section for me. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about myself and then dive in to my tips for you. Okay. So first things first, okay. So first things first, a little bit about me. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a CEO, I'm an active leader in network marketing, and I'm actually a serial college dropout. So that means it took me 2 times going to college to realize that college really wasn't for me. So if you can relate to any of that, drop a comment below. I was a horrible student. I was not a great test taker. So I knew very early on that my path in life was just going to be a little bit different than the norm. First time I tried to go to school, I realized that beauty school was not for me. So I ended up being a beauty school dropout. You guys can already kind of sing the song, right? Beauty school dropout. And then the second time I tried to do school, I tried to go the path that my sister went, which was in the medical field. And I realized after I couldn't resuscitate my dummies in class, and I was the only one in class that I couldn't resuscitate these dummies, I realized that wasn't the path for me. So, as I mentioned, it wasn't the path that was meant for me. So, I learned that the hard way. I ended up falling in love with business, though, when I got my first corporate America job in my early 20s, and ended up being my dream career. I loved sales. I didn't realize that I was good at sales, but it ended up being something that I really just fell in love with. I started really growing quickly with that company. I used to work for wireless. And I did that for about 7 years until I found out that I was pregnant with my first daughter. And so from there, my goals just completely changed. As much as I loved my career, I knew that in my heart that my life was going to change at that point because I didn't want to put my daughter in daycare. No offense to people that put their kids in daycare. But for me, I just wanted to be the one to raise my daughter. So, as bittersweet as it was, I ended up having to quit my job and I became a stay-at-home mom. So that was really, really new for me coming from the world. So comment below if you can relate to any of that. It was just really hard to just be away from my daughter. So when I had the opportunity to come home, I took it, I embraced it. But over time, and it was a very short period of time being home consistently, I realized that I was missing something. And it was just such a drastic change for me that I don't think I was really ready. And so I just needed something for me. I started realizing that I was losing kind of my sense of purpose and identity, even though I had my daughter. And I know that was my purpose and identity as well. But I was a career woman and I had goals. I still had aspirations. I wanted to accomplish things for myself. And so that was just a change for me. So I ended up meeting a neighbor that had just moved down the street, and she actually got me into direct sales. More specifically, I got into the party industry. So for those of y'all have ever thrown parties online, comment below if you have related to that industry, or maybe you've been in that industry. Maybe you're in that industry now. I joined direct sales, and I learned very quickly that it was not easy. As much as I loved sales and business, doing starting a business and promoting online was not easy, especially coming from somebody who never really posted online. I really just used my Facebook to keep up with my friends, my family, so that my family across the country and in Puerto Rico, holla at my Puerto Ricans out there, could keep up with my kids and all of that. So I learned really quickly that even though it was growing fast and I was gaining some success very quickly, that I pretty much had to figure everything else on my own. I had to figure out how to launch myself. I had to figure out how to sell online, this whole new world that I kind of embarked on, which was so different than just selling in person and talking to people in person. I had to figure out the online world. And needless to say, in that company, there really wasn't a ton of support. I didn't have the most supportive upline. It was kind of like one of those things where I joined and they were so excited that I joined, but there wasn't a ton of support after that. So maybe you guys can relate to that as well. So I had to figure things out. And I figured out that I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people in my community groups that were having the similar questions. They didn't know how to book parties and they had a hard time figuring out how to create scripts and what to say to people, how to handle objections, how to sell, right? Because there's no like business school for direct sales. And so I figured that out very fast. So when I realized that I wasn't alone and that there was many people in my company who also needed this type of help, I decided, since I was starting to figure some things out in that business, that I was going to create a Facebook group. Okay. And with this Facebook group, I gave it a really random name. Okay. And I want to say it was called Janet's Personalized Solutions for Sellers, right? Didn't know what I was doing. I just opened up this Facebook group. I gave it a really cheesy name. And I decided I was just going to share what I was learning, what I was Googling, what I was YouTubing, what I was learning on the interwebs. And I was like, maybe like some of you guys, right? I would go through and I'd find somebody who sounded like they knew what they were talking about. And I'd take a bunch of notes and I'd go implement and I'd go try it. And then when it didn't work or when it did work, I would tweak it and I would change it around. And I would take some of those concepts, make it my own, and share these ideas in this free Facebook group. Well, overnight, that group ended up growing. So we ended up having a ton of people in our company joining in, inviting people, and it just turned into this organic word of mouth thing. And I was just sharing this information for free initially. I didn't start really monetizing until I started sharing my actual resources. So, and here's the part that really changed everything. I had a resource that I had created for myself in this business, okay? Because again, the company that I was with didn't have a ton of resources. They weren't necessarily as organized. So when I created this resource, I decided I was just going to charge just a little fee for it, right? It was like $10. And that ended up being our first 5-figure a month product that we sold. And it was insane because it wasn't something that I was expecting. There wasn't any more than maybe 1,000, 1,500 people in this group. And I was also still a beginner in direct sales. So not only was I learning direct sales for the first time, but I was also sharing what was working for me, sharing my journey along the way, and also creating resources and selling the resources that were working for me, if that makes sense. So that's really how it all started, right? And one of the biggest things that I also learned just creating that group was the importance of lists, right? Creating lists and monetizing them, the consistency in our messaging, consistently showing up, branding, and all these other things that I didn't initially know in the very beginning, but we ended up just learning as we were implementing. So if you get anything out of this training, I hope that you can get that piece is you don't have to have it necessarily all figured out, but if you have a willingness to show up and you have a willingness to serve and help others while you're helping yourself, that's enough for people, right? That really is enough for people. And you can build a massive personal brand, just being authentic, being yourself, right? And just just helping people along the way. So in 2020, I decided I was going to switch over to social retail. To me, it was just a better business model. And that's what I'm actually doing now. In 2021, we realized how much growth our businesses were experiencing. So we decided that we were going to take a chance, and we made a huge decision. And at the time, we we decided to bring my husband home. So we retired him from his 15-year career. And so between my husband and myself, we just continued to build. And now that he wasn't working a full-time job, we turned that I guess income that we were making on both businesses, and we just quadrupled it. And we ended up making a multiple six-figure business that same year. So I thought I would just come on to get here with you guys. I know John's not here with us, so I'm having to kind of switch things up for y'all and share with you really just 5 tips and strategies that I came up with that I think are going to be valuable for you. For some of you that really want to start thinking about monetizing different channels. We've gone through affiliate marketing. We have launched coaching programs since then, boot camps, video courses, all sorts of just different things. Over 250 digital products over the last like 5 years. And so I could say that these 5 tips are really, in my opinion, some of the biggest tips that I think are going to help you in your journey. So if you guys are excited, drop some heart emojis in the comment section. Let me know if you guys have any questions as well. I'll be able to answer those at the end. So let me go ahead and get started here. All right. So I've got some 5 tips here that I think are going to help you. So the number one tip here I want to share with you, and this is from our very, very beginning, from when we started building our personal brand simultaneously with our direct sales business. The number one tip that I want you to understand, and feel free to take notes if this is going to be helpful for you, but number one tip is build community, not just a group. Build community, not just a group. Okay. There is a massive difference between a collection of people in one space versus a community of like-minded people that are there to learn and they have similar goals and aspirations. When I built my group, I didn't start initially because I wanted to monetize it. I built my group because I knew at the time that there were so many people that needed help. And I knew that I had found some things that were working well for me. So I just shared that, right? I started with a ton of free value. And it really started with going live. I used to be extremely nervous going live. Okay. I was a little nervous even starting this live, right? Because it's just that's just me naturally. I sometimes just get anxious going live. It's just me personally, right? I'm also an introvert by nature, right? I'm not the most extroverted person in the world. But what was most important to me was the fact that if I did show up and break out of my comfort zone a little bit, I knew that my messaging was going to land with somebody. And so I kind of kept that at the forefront of my mind. So for those of you that are a little nervous to show up, right, a little bit afraid, or maybe, you just feel like you're just not all the way there yet, or you don't have enough knowledge, right? There's nobody's got it all figured out. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Nobody has it all figured out. But if you know a little bit more than someone else, that's worth sharing. And if you focus on community, if you focus on giving that value, answering questions, really engaging with your community, and then focus in on solving those problems that they have, you can build a massive business, and really in a not super long period of time. Okay. So number one, build community. Okay. Not just a group of people in a space. Number 2, focus on serving over selling. Okay. So many people do this backwards. When you start your network marketing business or your direct sales business, right? There's so many people that want to just start up a group, right? And then all of a sudden, your people that were invited into this group, all they're getting are sales graphics, right? The billboards and the marketing and all of that. And I understand the perspective because I thought this way too when I first started, right? Start a group. They say launch your business, start a group, and then start marketing and start selling. That's what you're taught, or at least for me in the party business, in the party world, that's what I was taught, to just sell. But the problem is there's not any connection there. And people, when they want to make purchases, they need to know you, they need to like you and trust you. How do you get somebody from a cold audience to a warm audience to a hot audience? There has to be some work in between that you have to implement, right? You got to focus on serving your audience. How do you serve your audience? Like I mentioned with number 1, you go back to number 1, build that community. Maybe you're going live once a week like I do in my group and share some valuable tips. Focus in on a topic that's related to your audience, things that your audience really cares about, right? Focus in on teaching them, helping them live a more efficient lifestyle, right? helping them solve their problems. Do you know what problems you're solving? And if you know what problem you're solving, leave a comment in the comment section for me. Because if you don't know what problems you solve, you're going to have a hard time with serving. Okay. And that's probably why you're consistently in the selling mode, because you want to make sales. I get it. You're in business. But the problem is you got to create that trust bridge. And if you haven't created it, then you have to serve. You have to continue to serve. Okay. And that's kind of that missing piece that you probably have. Okay. So focus on serving your audience, because eventually people are going to feel so nurtured, right? Because that's what you want to do. You want to nurture your people. They're going to feel so nurtured by your value that when you do drop something for sale, those are going to be your first people. They're going to snag it up, right? Because you've nurtured them, you've taken care of them, you've solved their problems, and you're continuing to show up for them. Okay. Number 3, this is a big one. Okay. The riches, I know they say the riches are in the niches, which is true, but the riches are also in the lists. Okay. In the lists. How many of you in your business right now are building a list for your company? Right? Are you building a list, or you're letting your company do that for you? That's a big one. Okay. Whether it's a text list or an email list. We started with an email list, and we started with MailChimp, and then we switched over to ConvertKit, right? There's so many different email marketing systems and programs that you can use, but we started with building a list. Why? Because that is another place where you can nurture your audience. Okay. The lists are so important, and it's really not a reliable business strategy for you to rely on an algorithm for people to see your posts. Did you guys know that only 6% of people, 6% of people are seeing your posts? That's a very low percentage. That means only 8, right? 8, what is it? What's the statistic on that? I don't remember. But on Facebook, right? 6% of people are seeing your actual Facebook posts. That means if you've got thousands of people, this many people are actually seeing your content, right? Because the algorithm changes, and you can't really compete so much with social media, right? You got to get people off of social media. And that's really the goal, right? You got to get people on these lists. So do you guys remember, and then feel free to participate in the comments with this, but do you guys remember that one day where Facebook just like turned off? You guys remember that? Like Facebook completely turned off for a period of time, and it was hours before we were able to hop back on. You know who was really panicking during that period of time where Facebook was off and you couldn't access the computer or you couldn't access Facebook? It was just a white page. Remember that? The people that were panicking were the people that did not create a list, hadn't started creating a list, hadn't started migrating people onto their list. The people that weren't panicking were the people that had already had a list, right? So you want to make sure, whether you're starting a text list or an email list, okay, you want to have a valuable place for people to land so that they can hear from you, because you never know what happens on social media. I see people's Facebooks and TikToks and Instagrams, all these social media sites that people have, they get taken down all the time, because let's just call a spade a spade. If you're in network marketing and direct sales, some of these platforms don't like us very much, right? So you always have to protect yourself. It's always smart to start a list. I recommend, if you want to start super small, start with a text list, right? We sell a lot in our text list, and we text people once a week on our list, right? And we give them something for free that leads them over into something where they can buy something, right? And that's an option. And we do that every single week on repeat, okay? If you don't want to start with a text list, start with an email list. Create what's called a lead magnet. Get people onto the free thing that you're offering them, okay? And then have an upsell at the end, or get them onto that free lead magnet, okay? And then nurture them on your email list when they've made it to your email list. And then maybe later on you can have something for them to purchase from you, okay? There's so many different ways that you can do that. Okay. Yes, exactly. Larry Dennis. Yes, you need to build a list. Okay. So instead of riches on the niches, I believe riches are in the lists. Okay. Number 4, this is kind of a big one, especially for those of you that are just starting to build your personal brand. I started doing this in the very beginning, not realizing that I was doing it, but I'm so glad I did, because 5 years later, it's the reason why we get to do this full time. It's the reason why we get to live this life by design that we've created, right? We created a signature event to keep people coming back. Okay. I want you to write that one down. Create a signature event to keep people coming back. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? So, you might have seen it with John's Lives, right? How many of you attend John's Money Mondays? Does he do that every single Monday? For the most part, right? You see him and you know every Monday, John's going to have a live and it's going to be fire. It's going to be amazing, right? Who else, right? Who else do you follow that has like a signature event that they do on a consistent basis? I know in in a collaborative group that I'm in, it's called SynShare. It's a scheduling program. Every Tuesday, they have a Tuesday event and they train on content and social media and all these things, right? So their audience is trained to come every Tuesday in their Facebook group to attend their free event. Okay. In my group, Solutions for Sellers, it's my free community group. Every single Sunday night, my audience is trained to know that on Sunday nights, I have a free training, okay? And it's capped off with a live, and they have the opportunity to get something for free or purchase something, okay? Every single Sunday. And what's even better is you can combine this signature event with your lists. So on Sundays during the day, if I know my Sunday segment, my signature event is on a Sunday night, then Sunday morning, I'm going to have my VA send a text to remind everybody on my lists for the event. And that just 4 times, 5 times the attendance rate, because now people are getting that direct message from you and it reminds them to attend. Okay. Does that make sense? Any resources for learning lists? Sorry. Any resources for learning lists and finals, etc.? That's a good question. I don't necessarily have a resource ready for you. Learning how to build effective lists and what funnels are, how to use them. So as far as what resources that you can use to build lists, so I would say if you're using an email marketing platform, you could use something like ConvertKit. You could use something like MailChimp. We started with MailChimp, then we switched over to ConvertKit. I know some people really like Flowdesk because it's pretty, but to me, it's pretty, but it doesn't connect with all of the connections that we need. So that's a good email marketing platform to start with. And then when it comes to creating a lead magnet, there are some great things inside ConvertKit that show you how to set up your lead magnet. But a lot of them, we create them on Canva. So, hopefully that helps. But those are the 2 main programs that we use, Canva and ConvertKit, to create our lead magnets and those kind of resources. And then as far as a funnel goes, there's tons of different ones you can use. Ours is a little bit more higher end. We use ClickFunnels, but it's pretty pricey every month. So I wouldn't recommend starting off with that. But there's another one that's actually called StanStore. That one, I believe it's $99 a month, and you can create, I think it's a couple of different funnel options on that. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay, so number 4, create a signature event to keep people coming back, right? So for you, it depends on what it is that you like to teach. What are you passionate about, right? What is it that you like to teach your audience? What do you want to be known for? When people come to your group, what can they expect from you, right? Tori can say, like, she's a professional at helping people get healthier, helping moms get a little bit healthier. So every Sunday, maybe her Sunday segments are going to be all about fitness tips for the busy mom, right? Or how to get a quick workout in while the kids are getting ready for school. Regardless of what those tips are, focus in on what type of event you can create and kind of the training topics that you can put in so that it attracts people and it makes them want to come back. Okay. And then number 5 is a big one also. Okay. Number 5 is always ask questions. Always, always, always ask questions to your audience. Okay. Never assume that you know what problems they're having. If you don't understand what problems your audience is having, ask them, right? I constantly ask my audience questions in my group, and you guys can see that if you're in the group, you can see the times where I'm asking them questions. And the reason being is because I never want to assume I know that what they need, right? Sometimes, like over a period of time, once you're used to having a brand and you're used to consistently posting and you're used to kind of seeing the comments in your weekly signature events and what questions are being asked, right? You can kind of create an idea of what you could launch in the future and what types of trainings that your audience would benefit from. But the reality is I always ask questions because things can change, right? And when I get an influx of people from an ad or from a collaborative that I've done, or maybe this training, regardless, if I get people coming in, I always make sure that at least once a week I'm asking them a question and putting it in a colored background so they can see it, because that allows me to learn from my audience. It allows me to learn what problems they are having and if I can create solutions for them. Okay. So, and if I can give one last tip here, always focus in on solving one main problem. One main problem. Okay. I know I gave you 6 tips instead of 5, but I feel like that's a really important one. A lot of times when we get into business, we try to solve everybody's problems, right? Because we think, oh, we're in business, we want to make money, and then we're so knowledgeable in all the things, we can solve all the problems, right? When in reality, you only really just need to solve one main problem. Okay. So I want you to sit down and take an opportunity and sit down and think, what can I help my audience with ultimately? Right? How can I help them solve their problems? For me in the beginning, it was helping direct sellers book parties, right? That's it. That's it. And that's how I made my first 80 grand that year. Okay. Was not knowing what I was doing, right? I was helping people I was helping people book parties. And that was my first year. Okay. We got into the multiple 6 figures when our group was growing and when I was really asking questions and I was branching off of that. And to this day, I still solve that problem for people, right? So, try not to get into the weeds of solving all the problems. I know shiny object syndrome is a thing. I totally get it. The MR course thing. I know a lot of people like to dive into those things, which I don't have a problem with. However, it's always important to just be authentic, right? Share the knowledge that you have learned because your knowledge is powerful. Okay. Anyway, guys, I hope that this was helpful. And if you guys got some value from this, hashtag value in the comment section. I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I know it's a little bit of a different live. John isn't here with us, but that's okay. I think it was still a good one. So thank you so much for hopping on with me. Enjoy your Wednesday afternoon. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.